Welcome to the Legal Innovation Forum podcast, a series of podcast episodes at the intersection of business, innovation, and law. I'm Lucy Saddleton, Managing Editor of the Legal Innovation Forum. On today's episode, you'll hear from Lily Schurra, Kevin Keller, Jessica Nguyen, and our founder and CEO, Andrew Bowyer, on harnessing data and AI to enrich legal workflows. This episode is brought to you by Sandstone, a platform built by legal experts and GCs to manage and resolve legal requests seamlessly with agents. It helps in-house teams move at the speed of AI, unify data, and drive workflows.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you may be. Welcome to the Legal Innovation Forum's 2026 webinar series, which is ongoing. Delighted to be here. We have a great topic today, from insight to impact, harnessing data and AI to enrich legal workflows, which is very much of the moment. So we have a fantastic group of speakers here today from some very innovative technology companies, and I think it's going to be a very forward-thinking, rich discussion. So before we kick off today, just a couple of housekeeping things. I'm the founder of the Legal Innovation Forum. My name is Andrew Bowyer. We put on conferences, webinars, salons, roundtables, workshops. We publish reports all about the intersection of business and law and the business of law all over North America and sometimes the world, places like Dubai and London. And our big conference coming up is in Toronto, June 2nd. You can check out our website, liforum.co, if you're interested, and those folks in the US who are interested to come to Canada for this. Could be a good time of year to visit Toronto, and lots of innovative things going on in Canada. And we're also running a survey for in-house leaders, which is here. We'll put the link in the chat. Lots of interesting insights on how in-house leaders are navigating risk right now. So look out for those in the chat. But that's enough about us. Let's get on to our speakers. So we'll do introductions first, and we'll dive into the conversation. And we'll start with Lily.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lily Schurra. I'm Senior Commercial Counsel at Sourcegraph. Sourcegraph enterprise customers, developer teams who are trying to understand and control their code bases. So think large corporations that have millions of lines of code that need to understand what's in there and make changes and improve the way that they operate. Sourcegraph, to me, is an incredible forward-thinking company for a number of reasons. We've, in the last year, launched an agentic coding tool, competitive Claude Code. We have agentic capabilities within our legacy search platform as well that help you better search, summarize, research, analyze, understand the code within those mega code bases. So I get to work with counsel from all over the world, with enterprises who are negotiating contracts for AI and asking questions about how to use AI for their organization, while also thinking about how to do it for our legal team here at Sourcegraph.
All right, fantastic. Thanks, Lily. And I'm going to ask you some more questions about these topics to do with Sourcegraph as we go through the conversation today. Kevin, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Kevin Keller, and I am the General Counsel of Forward Networks. We have technology for enterprise customers who are looking to understand their networks, and how we do that is we create a digital network twin. So a lot of conversations out there about digital twins and what they're useful for. They're sort of the ground truth for any AI type of system. You need to understand what the system is and have context. And so that's what we do. We have lots of customers in the enterprise space that are running very complex networks.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. And Jessica.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Nguyen. I'm the Chief Strategy and Legal Officer of Sandstone. A little bit about Sandstone. We are an in-house legal department focused tool. We are a knowledge orchestration layer and really the brain of an in-house legal team. And what does that mean? It means that really to do our jobs well in legal and not just answer "it depends" as our question, the answer when I ask the legal question, we need a ton of context. And where does context come from? All these fragmented tools, emails, Slacks, CLM systems, CRM systems. So we bring all that data together into Sandstone to give in-house legal teams and empower them with that information and context to deliver great legal advice. And I can't wait to talk more about that throughout the webinar.
All right. Amazing. And thank you very much to Sandstone for partnering with us for today's webinar. Delighted to work with this company, and as Jessica outlined, doing some very interesting and very, very useful things for folks in legal departments and beyond. And like I said, I'm Andrew. I'm the founder of the forum, and I won't get into too much more detail about that, because I think many of you have attended our programs before, but check out our website if you want to learn more. So let's start about setting the scene here. How does it look in terms of the key risks and challenges facing your organizations? Let's start with that. And then how is that in turn impacting how you are evolving in your role? I think it's been really interesting. We started doing webinars in 2020 during the outset of the pandemic. And I would say everyone's had to deal with their trials and tribulations in life and their organizations and their work throughout this decade. But speaking with in-house lawyers, I think you've had a really tough time of it, because every year there's something new. So it's been a very dynamic and interesting and challenging decade. Lots of opportunities, lots of new stories, but it's certainly one that has had plenty of action happening and change happening. So Kevin, let's start with you. Like, if you look in the context of Forward Networks, what are the big risks and opportunities that the business is dealing with today, and how's that filtering into your work as general counsel?
Yeah, I think everyone, would say AI is impacting a lot of things. I think that since we're in the networking, security, IT space, it both creates a lot of opportunities, but a lot of risks, and it's moving so fast. So I think that's the, sort of the risk calibration with things moving this fast in places that are highly impactful means that you have to be on top of it. So I think there's just an extra pressure to stay on top of things, like, knowing that Anthropic's, new frontier model that hasn't been released yet, may have serious implications for, businesses like ours and for the customers that we support. I mean, in particular, the customers. So I think that's the thing, is keeping up has become really challenging the past couple of years.
Okay. Lily, what's your experience going on at Sourcegraph right now?
Sure. I think it's been interesting in the last couple of years charting the developments in general, with our industry and with technical capabilities as they've become more accessible. As we as an organization have implemented AI into our tools, I think we've faced this very interesting, from the corporate perspective, this very interesting education gap that has been a huge challenge as an in-house lawyer. I find that a lot of the concerns that I think everyone has when they try a new AI tool come up very regularly, despite our efforts to try to clarify where things maybe, don't come into play. We don't use AI for high-risk activities, for example. There are not risks of sensitive data coming into our platform. That's not how we operate as a platform that accesses a code base to help you understand lines of code. There's these questions I get from the customer counsel I'm negotiating with. I just find very interesting, and it's been a challenge for me as a lawyer to understand how I can both better prepare myself in those conversations and in those negotiations, but also better prepare my sales team to have those questions come to them from procurement teams as they, get closer to contracting too. I think we'll be in an education gap stage for a while, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about AI as much as there's a lot of use of it, right?
Yeah.
And I think from a legal perspective, it's been very interesting to try to figure out where all of these new accessible capabilities come into play for me in my own day-to-day work, for the team that I work with and support every day. That's been an interesting challenge to kind of assess what used to be a, buy some tool only as your solution to automating capabilities. It's not necessarily the case anymore. So it's been an interesting challenge to kind of assess what the right answer is for some of the questions that come up from an automation perspective.
Interesting. Jessica, tell us about your, what Sandstone's doing, what you guys see as a risk and opportunity that you're navigating. I think on top of that, obviously you get to work and see across legal departments. You're omniscient. So you get to see with all these different aggregate challenges they're dealing with. And how are you seeing this sort of current phase of this AI revolution, and all the attendant other things that are going on for organizations to navigate, approach these things?
Yeah. At a high level, I'm seeing very interesting conflicting directives at one level from the IT technical teams of organizations. A lot of those folks are saying, hey, with Claude and OpenClaw and whatnot, or Sourcegraph, we can just build our own tech. We don't need to buy tools like Sandstone or any other CLM. Let's just build our own. So the build versus buy discussion has been a bigger thing now in terms of the world, because it is easier and faster to build. That is true. But on the flip side of that discussion, Andrew, and interestingly enough, shouldn't IT be thinking about what are all the risks associated with building your own tech? And I think they're forgetting all those risks. Like, who's going to maintain the code? What happens when there's a bug? Is that a self-built code actually going to meet your various security requirements and pass a SOC audit? Probably not. So I think it's very interesting today where there's a push to build your own tech, but at the same time, wait a minute, we don't want to build our own tech that could pose some security issues, waive our privilege protection when we're using legal tech tools. Kevin, you're thinking too. So there's this weird dichotomy right now. Kevin, are you seeing the same thing? I'm seeing a lot of organizations say build and don't buy, but then wait.
I love that line because we just recently had an executive offsite, and one of the things that I wanted to do to just, it's not just all about legal. It's you're an executive, so you're thinking holistically about the business. And I was like, well, if you were another party, a potential customer or whatever, and you wanted to make a build versus buy decision, how would you make that decision with all the public information about our company? And so I did that exercise actually and presented that at our executive offsite, because not that using, and I used Claude, right, to do this, and it was a very holistic, very thorough competitive analysis of how competitors would think about whether they could replicate parts of the business, as well as what customers might see and might think. And it was holistic, like what are the costs? What are the real costs? What are the compliance costs? What are the maintenance costs? It factored all that in so that you're presented with, like, at some point with all these AI tools and all this, is there a point at which it becomes a closer decision? And, what are you saying to customers out there? What are you doing to stay ahead of that from a competitive perspective? So when you said that, I was smiling like I just did this, and it is very helpful to do. But what you do find when you do those analyses is there is a large gap between building, something as a prototype or building something that even works for a small team, and scaling it and keeping it up and running and keeping it safe from all the hacks and all this. So it is a really interesting time, though, that a general counsel can do that sort of competitive, build buy analysis with public materials themselves in a relatively short time.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have spoken quite a bit on LinkedIn, for example, about the value of building. But I think it's really important to put that in a narrow box of context of why. So as an example, at Sourcegraph, we're a small team. First, Sam and Melanie, you guys are here. Hi, thanks for joining. That's my team. We're a small team, right? We've got a lot going on. There's always a lot to do. So it's really important for us to find ways to understand the work we're doing, just like any legal team, right? But I knew from my history in implementing various legal tech tools, analyzing, assessing it for other in-house organizations, that it wasn't going to make sense for us to buy, say, a legal intake tool right away to replace kind of our manual effort of tracking the work that we do until we really understood what we needed. So for our team, we went through 3 iterations of a build that I did within Slack, which is where we live and get our requests. And all of those iterations, for lack of a better word, failed. And I'm extremely proud of them, because the failure was in, maybe it wasn't the right thing to adopt. It wasn't natural for our team to use. It was clunky, or, not the best user experience for the business users, or the data wasn't coming out the way that we wanted to. But what we learned from that experience was, okay, what do we actually want? What do we actually need? And what's meaningful to share with our executive team members? And so we're now in this place where we have that information, and going forward in this fiscal year 27 for us, is to be able to say, okay, we know moving forward, we want to be better about capturing data on the work that our team does. We want to know that what's high impact. We want context from that high impact. And quantity is useful, like how many contracts did Lily and Melanie look at, for example, but it's not as meaningful as that high impact work. So trying to assess that gets us the information we need to make a purchase later on. And that's where I think this like ease of building is so powerful, because if we had started that DIY build situation that I developed there, if we'd started that by saying, let's just go buy a tool, we would have bought something we were unhappy with and not quite figured out why we were unhappy. So I think a lot of it is this like comes back to tech readiness, or really understanding your needs in a way that maybe you couldn't have done otherwise.
Jessica, I interjected your question to ask Lily, so I don't know if you have any.
I love this dialogue. And Lily, I love your story about you built several iterations of a Slack intake tool and it didn't work out, but you experimented and then you learned from that process what works and doesn't work and what you need for the future. It's almost like you had to date some frogs before you found your husband, and that's okay. And you learned a lot. So
but it was free.
And it was a low cost experiment. And that's great.
Yeah.
And now you have a better understanding when you go into your search to buy a tool, what your team and company actually needs.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting. I think, Jessica, what's interesting too, and everyone knows about design thinking and that type of how do you approach things. We use something in my company, our company, called the Bridgewater 5-Step, which is out of Bridgewater, the hedge fund, and Ray Dalio. To think about things. We even look at how we do our webinars. We're doing some process on as a team about what we can do better, right? And you start with the goals, the problems, the roots of the problems, and then you start the design. But Jessica, I think this is a really interesting point that you made at the beginning here, is this sort of build versus buy, right? There's this pressure in the market, in the media sphere about AI that, hey, I don't need external vendors. I don't need software vendors anymore. Forget their share price, whatever. We're all going to be able to do this ourselves. And this great revolution's coming, except for all these things that these tailwind risks that come out of it. But when you guys are selling technology that sits on top of core technology in enterprises, right? That everybody's using, not just legal, which is actually a very exciting thing about Sandstone. When I learned about it, it was like, this is a really cool tool or platform that you built. But when you're working with all these legal departments and talking to them, and how are people thinking about this in terms of building something that's both flexible and durable to evolve in this time as it sort of grow? Every year we have a new narrative about AI. We have a new set of topics to talk about, new assumptions. It's very exciting, but also probably quite stressful for folks who are having to make technology decisions at legal departments. So any frameworks that you're noticing people are using, or that you're using yourself when you're advising your clients, or you're thinking about at Sandstone in your own work, that you could share with the audience so they could adopt those as they navigate this, nobody has the answer kind of era.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I don't have a particular framework that, like your Bridgewater example, Andrew, but here's what I'll say. I think I'll talk about more about the phases of AI in terms of legal in-house adoption. I think for the first couple of years after 2022 and OpenAI came in the market, there was a lot of just experiment and chat, more consumer use. Great. And then phase 2, which was the past, I would say 2 years and still current, we're at a stage where AI is still more of a point solution. Like we use AI to solve one particular thing. Contract redlining is very popular. Research and summarization is also a very popular use case. So that's phase 2. And what I think about as Sandstone is we are phase 3. We are the future of legal technology. We are going to be phase 1, phase 2, and what's combined, and then phase 3, which is this contextual layer of being able to absorb all of the information coming from these enterprise systems that are not going to go away, Andrew. It took years to implement at these larger organizations. And despite being clunky and despite being very expensive and everyone hates those tools, you're not going to be ripped and replaced anytime soon. So how can we add value by sitting on top of those systems, especially for legal teams that don't own those systems, but need the metadata and information from those systems to do our job effectively and with impact, Lily. I like your story about not measuring tasks, but measuring impact. And so we are going to be the phase 3 where the point solutions. You have the ability to have chat interface and research and query in natural language, combining that with the intake and contract redlining, but they right now are sitting in siloed tools, Andrew. And so when I think about, Kevin. And so when I think about phase 3, I think, I don't have a framework per se, but I would say if you're looking into legal tech tools, think about where your organization wants to be. Are you a phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3? Kevin, any thoughts?
I think, when we talk about, and you hear a lot of talk about where the real value in a legal team comes from, whether it's a in-house general counsel and team or a law firm. And the discussion lands with judgment, right? And when you think about what judgment is applying reason with context. And so, without the context, you really can't have the thing of value. And so, but it's hard. It's hard to integrate with all these systems. It's hard to know when and what to pull. And I think, teams that are building legal tech V3, have to be a combination of deep technology and deep legal practice understanding to know in this situation what matters. What would the context be that an attorney that needs to make a really tough judgment here need to have in order to make the best judgment? And so I think that's where we're going to see things move, but it's a hard integration thing. And so it's going to be interesting to see some companies that built around just that chat or just a specific functionality, how they'll do those integrations, and whether those teams will really be built up of people who understand that in this situation, a general counsel or a IP attorney or whatever would need this context. This would help them make a nuanced judgment of value for their company.
Very, and quote of the day so far, Jessica, as you pointed out in the chat. So thanks for that. Thank you. And thank you, Kevin. One other thing in terms of that way of approaching it, Kevin, any tips you can share, because you've got lots of experience in the Valley and you've seen tech wave come and go and all the fallout from that, and opportunities. It's an amazing story. You've been at the center of it. Any kind of approaches you could share with the audience about how you think about it when you think about legal tech, your role, and how it fits into the bigger organization's tech stack?
Yeah, I think, I'm seeing a real opportunity actually for legal teams right now to really be the leaders in companies and really stand up and take a different kind of seat at the boardroom table or the executive table, because we are at first like deep knowledge workers who work with words and understanding and context and everything. And so as we dive in and understand how these tools work and how we can use them, we really can be an example for the rest of the company, so that, I have people coming to me and my team saying, can you sit down with my team and help them understand? Can you, do an all hands where you present about this? Because, we are directly engaging with things, and we, deal with complex context and everything and judgment. And that's where there's a lot of value. So, even within a company, I think it's opening up an opportunity for general counsels and teams really to step up and play a broader role at a company. So that's really interesting. To keep up with it though, and to be good, I talk a lot about product counseling. To really be a great product counsel, you have to be curious, and you have to understand the products that your teams are building really deeply. And to understand all this AI tech is also very hard, because you have to, you got to really follow it. You really got to understand it to understand what tools are there at your disposal. And I think that can be challenging with the pace that it's going. But I think if you really want to be add even more value, have your judgment be really recognized across the company, you have to be deep in the weeds on this stuff. You have to understand it and find mechanisms that help you keep up on it. But yeah, pace is going fast. So.
All right, great answer. Lily, anything to add?
Yes, please. I want to say two things in particular. First, if you've not read it, Kevin has an article on Medium about what it means to be a full stack product counsel and like rethinking that kind of role. It's incredible. Read it. Worth it. Second, I think, I talked about an education gap that I'm seeing at the organization level and how it's impacting my work as a lawyer in-house. I think there's also an education gap that's existed for a long time between legal and the teams that it supports. And that's where like what Sandstone is doing is a V3 legal tech company, or whatever. I can't exactly remember how you phrased it, Jessica, but I think it's really meaningful and powerful. I've spent a decade trying to do in my career is training sales teams and product teams and eng teams on what it means to work with legal and how to communicate with legal in a way that I can actually be most helpful to them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times reframing their understanding of what a legal team does and how we serve those team members. Like in-house counsel, I'm not there to stop somebody from getting a deal done. I'm there to partner with you and celebrate when it's signed. Right. And I think a lot of times the opposite can be true sometimes for sales teams in particular, and they get scared of legal, and it's important to work through that together. But on top of that, sales teams, I don't think have ever been trained on what kind of context is meaningful for a legal team, like why legal needs to know certain information, where they can gather that, where these enterprise systems that have been, really stuck into the corporation they work for have a lot of that context, and it's context they might send to their sales leader or whomever in discussing a deal, but don't think to send it to legal, where that information is otherwise manually gathered by the lawyer or asked for by the lawyer. And so I think there's a really powerful way to take us further as legal teams, gathering that context in a new way and helping inform the organization that it's not as simple as just passing a Word document to a legal team and hoping that they're going to be able to work through it, right? There's a way that we can all work together as a full enterprise, understanding the goals behind the deal, for example, why we're trying to accomplish XYZ thing, the goal behind the product we're building, et cetera, and turn it into really powerful knowledge that drives us forward, both in the specific situation and then in other work we do together as well.
I love that answer, and I love that focus on the context, and I hate to beat a drum on context, but if you think about when I was a law firm attorney, it's really a struggle, because to get a really nuanced, great answer, you need to understand the products and everything, but yet you're billing by the hour, and no one wants to have a junior attorney even billing at a low rate of $100 an hour back in the 90s. Spend time reading through their company website and reading through their products and talking to their development team about, what's coming down the pipeline and getting all the context that would give you a great response. So what you get instead from a lot of law firms, and not all, and this is in all situations, they're not given the context. And so they have to stop it. It depends at a certain point. They can't make a judgment, give you a recommendation without more context. And so a lot of the effort when you're even internally and passing things off externally is, what context do I gather? What matters in this situation? How do I get them the right things so that interface between sales and legal doesn't become legal just doesn't understand. They said it depends. They threw it in my lap. They made a very conservative decision because they didn't know all of the context that would have allowed us to make a risk balance decision. And so I think that's the reason that context does matter in making great judgments, and why it's a hard thing.
Jessica, Sandstone provides context, right? Like, this is kind of what you guys do. Context aggregators, but maybe I shouldn't try to come up with the taglines myself. But
I like your tagline. I think our head of marketing is on this call, so we'll definitely consider that tagline. Context aggregators. Right, cool. Love it.
Context aggregators. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad you like it. But so what do you think about this, like in terms of the problem set that you're solving in this case? Because I think if we tie this together, right, what Lily and Kevin are saying, and you're saying, is this is a really interesting moment for lawyers, right? If you read the McKinsey headlines of everyone's going to, the first role that's going to be that's going to be on universal basic income is lawyer. Don't go to law school. Don't do this. All sorts of existential doubt coming out for folks. But it's also a very exciting time, I think, with the power of AI. And it does present an opportunity for lawyers who really sit at the center of businesses, because you really are omniscient. You get to see what's really going on under the hood across the organization in a very interesting way, more than any other function in an organization, not just at the general counsel level. So how, with that context and technology that makes sense of all the other enterprise applications that a company's running, which is what you guys do as context aggregators at Sandstone, where do you see that going in terms of empowering in-house lawyers to add that value and to be that much more core to the business, functionality and growth in any organization?
Yeah, it is. We're going to become less about being the barometer of, right now, a lot of businesses go to us more like, can you get the deal done? And what are the legal requirements of doing X, Y, and Z? That is generally the scenarios that businesses come to legal. I think with the contextual power of tools like Sandstone and what we can do, that's going to change. Actually, a story of my career that I love telling is when I was at Microsoft about 7 to 8 years ago now. God, Kevin, it feels like forever. My Microsoft days. One of the areas that I became this trusted business partner and very successful there with the Office 365 engineering and product team was that I was Sandstone for them. I was that context layer. So you can imagine an organization with 200,000 employees. It is really hard to get that context because it's so siloed. So what I would spend a lot of time in that Sandstone could do to empower legal teams now, but what I spent time in when I was counsel at Microsoft was building cross-functional relationships, not necessarily with the business, but with legal in the commercial team, legal in the patent team, legal with trademark team. There's so Xbox team. There's so many different teams. So that when I was sitting in the executive meetings and we were talking about Office 365 strategy, planning, competitive intelligence, I could bring the insights like, hey, maybe we should adjust that approach because we are in discussions with competitor XYZ tech company to buy Office 365. I know they're a competitor in the email space, but they're also a customer. We also license a patent from them and blah, blah, blah. And to come with that holistic perspective really leveled me up. And I became an invitee to all of their executive meetings and strategy meetings. This is my shining moment. I was on the office message for the corporate vice president of Office 365. I was like, if you have a legal strategy question, go to my counsel, Jessica, at Microsoft.com. That was like, I took a snapshot of that and put that in my performance review. So
I thought you were going to say you framed it and it's on your office wall.
Oh God, I should have framed it. I put it in my
well, I guess, it's probably, you can't access it anymore. Yeah.
You can't access it. It's living some database now in Microsoft, but you have to save those. Pro tip for your performance review, take a PDF and save all those emails giving you kudos for your performance reviews with those big companies. But the point of the story was I was the human contextual aggregator. And now, Andrew, thank you for the line, contextual aggregator. Now there's going to be tools like Sandstone that can do that aggregation for you and really level you up as not just a legal advisor, but a business executive and strategist. And I think that is really fun because honestly, reviewing an NDA, summarizing what CCPA says, that is not fun for me. No offense to folks listening who love doing that work. I don't find it doesn't spark joy for me.
It doesn't. It's like, does it bring? It's like what's Mary Kondo? Like, does this bring you joy?
Spark joy, right?
Does it spark joy? Right. Yeah. Sorry, Kevin, you were going to say,
Yeah, I was going to respond. I was going to respond to another part of your question, which is about going to law school and all that. I think if you boil down law school, and I used to think, I don't want my kids doing that because look at the doors are closing and all this. But I think law school is really when you come out of there, if you've done all the right things, which I think is not necessarily law review and things like that. It's like all the right things are learning how to exercise your superpower. Your superpower is being able to think through and reason through problems and apply context. And if you think about it that way, like who will be better situated to be at that judgment layer, to take all the context across an organization, like Jessica mentioned, and to be able to make sense of it and engage with AI and share the context or understand which context is relevant in a particular moment. You're training for that. You're like in the gym, training for that. If you're in law school, if you're treating it the right way, how do I exercise this brain that I have that is about reasoning and thinking what if, and thinking what does the other side think, and all of these metacognitive reasoning strategies. You're developing that muscle in ways that lots of other programs, lots of other graduate programs, lots of other people in an organization don't think that way. And it may be the most powerful way of thinking in the future. So that's my view kind of on law school. And if you use it the right way, if you're in law school right now, and just lean into learning, lean into like finding context and applying it and thinking about it, because you will be better situated for the world of the future than almost anyone else.
I completely agree. And I think everybody's facing this challenge, right? What does work look like now? And I guarantee in the next 5-10 years is going to look much different than the pundits tell us.
Yeah, and it may not be
Bloomberg or the FT or whatever media, well, not media, but everything, right? There's lots of, we don't really know, but that toolkit and that I think is a very strong, powerful.
Yeah, if you think about it, like I want this path that's been existing when the pyramid structure and everything existed, that may not exist. But your ability to, you've seen so much innovation actually coming from law students thinking already about building legal tech and what they can do and learning really fast. I think that ability is going to be super powerful. Whether the same paths exist to like go to the law firm for a couple of years, then go to this in-house job, then do this, I don't know. But certainly the most powerful intellectual skills, they'll still be very useful.
Absolutely. I think so. What's also interesting too, when I look at each of your bios, right? You've really had interesting careers on different sides of the aisle when it comes to legal. Like you've all had quite innovative careers. Like Jessica, like you said, you were at Microsoft, then you're doing all sorts of things in the legal tech world. Now you're the chief legal officer and strategy officer of a legal tech company. Lily, I know you've been in legal tech companies and now you come back to being in-house. Kevin, I'm not entirely sure if you actually work for legal tech companies, but you build tech platforms in your spare time, which I want to talk about next. And you've been at the center of this sort of ongoing tech revolution in the Bay Area over the years, and lots of thoughts about that sort of role. So I think all of you are like exemplars, and I hope the audience is watching this, of how to have a really interesting career path with that set of skills you learn in law school and employ them as you travel through a time which is going through massive fundamental change, and none of us seem to really be able to do anything except the best thing is to accept it, know your superpower, and apply that superpower and use technology, use AI to be even more super powerful, to succeed and also find a true joy in your work besides reviewing NDAs, for example. If that's not your thing, then there's lots of other things you can do that are more fun with a law degree. Just ask Jessica. I want to move the conversation, but I want to talk about agentic AI because I want us to kind of explore this topic a little bit more. What it actually means right now. It's a topic that gets thrown around a lot. This is the year of agentic AI. Last year was the year of the prompt. This is the year of agentic AI. I don't know what 2027 will look like yet. We'll come up with that term in the summer. But tell us about agentic AI. Kevin, I want to start with you because I think you think about this very deeply, and you have some other projects that you're working on outside of your day job, which is exploring this. So tell us about that and give us a little bit of a crash course on what agentic AI means, where it's now, and what it means for what do people need to really know about this who are signed into this webinar.
Yeah, at the highest level, I think agentic AI, and one of the early companies that was really on the forefront here was one where I was legal, that was Adept AI, where they had tool use and computer use agents that could engage with websites and all this a year or so before anyone else had anything working. And it was fascinating to be there because so an agent is more of the stuff built around a model and enabling it to use tools and all this. and operate without human intervention in some cases. And so, that's what we built, and built the word going around now is a harness, essentially a scaffolding that called the model, of course, for certain things when it needed to understand what was on a website, when it needed to read something or do some manipulation of something. Then it would call the model and say, what is this? What do I do now? But then the tools would enact, that directive. So that's what agents are. And there's various levels. Some people will just talk about a specialized prompt as an agent. That's not really it. And so that's you're starting to see a lot of legal tech and other companies start to implement agentic workflows that will basically, automate a lot of the workflow and apply, some level of thought and reason in structuring the data and all this. And I think, on one level, just those simple tasks are, I think, in legal minds still like kind of uncomfortable. People feel uncomfortable about letting something autonomously handle a task that isn't, your human. But we also know that like the people we hire, like they're very, very smart, but people make mistakes as well. And we forgive that, and we build processes and mechanisms around that. So I think there's room to start to bring these agentic flows into legal, with the right controls, with the right humans in the loop and all of that, and an understanding of what things they're touching. And that's where we are right now, I think, in the adoption cycle, is starting to think about and take baby steps into allowing, automated workflows that use AI in the background. Yeah, and to your point about the stuff I do on the side, I do a lot of thinking about thinking and how we gather context together and do that. If anyone's interested, my side startup, we're probably going to take some investments. So if anyone's interested, I can send you a detailed packet, but it would take too long to explain it here in a way that people would understand it. Other than to say, I will go, Jessica's very good at pushing me to be very crisp. So I will say that the high level is it's evolved intelligence. That's the stuff that I've been working on for a long time. So.
All right. One further question, Kevin, is if we're thinking about agentic AI and where it could be applied in a common legal workflow now in terms of where its development is at, what would be that sort of process that you would think it could start to make those sort of steps to be applied to, obviously with supervision?
Yeah, I think, some of the early things you see are some of the automations that happen with, questions and answers in Slack and things like that, where you're using, an AI agent to basically field those, look against the database within a certain confidence level. If there's not an answer in the database and your company's existing FAQs give you a high level answer that, in certain categories that you're comfortable with the AI above a certain confidence, giving those answers automatically. But taking a lot of that friction from your day, repetitive questions and things like that, I think that's one of the first kind of ways in which we see a lighter touch. And then people are starting to automate some contract workflows in the same way to do a quick analysis for, key things that would be, deal killers in an NDA. And then with the right context, understanding that if the situation's X, Y, and Z, the dollar values underneath this, then, unless these two things are in there, and go ahead, AI, do the analysis of the contract. If you didn't find those two things, it's low enough stakes that we can automate the whole process, take it right to signature, and no one in legal actually has to ever even look at that contract. I think that, again, that takes a lot of context to really understand what are the parameters, what are the guardrails that I want, what contracts am I okay with just automating and letting vendor agreements, unless they have these two things, just go through without even a human legal review. I think that takes a lot of context and understanding to be able to think about that way.
Right. Thank you, Kevin. Lily, what's your take on agentic AI and where this is going and how it can be applied to legal?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Kevin talked about lowering friction, and what friction means to you is dependent on how you work and your organization and all of that. I don't mean to give the classic "it depends" answer there, but it really is meaningful. So like I joked when we were prepping for this webinar that I'm the like small use case example on the panel, and Kevin's the big one with evolved intelligence. But I for one, I have a tendency to pull a lot of information, what I call like a mad scientist note-taking approach. And it's just notes everywhere, and I have to find a way to break it down and make it readable by someone else. I've found it really useful to feed my context into AI and say, take my mad scientist notes and turn it into something that I can help articulate to someone else. And it's one of the most powerful things about being an attorney is the ability to take complicated concepts and turn them into something readable and understandable and I'm using a lot of passive voice, guys. I don't know what's happening there. But by the teams that don't know what things like liability and indemnity are. Like, there are ways that you can translate a lot of this information just with simplistic prompting AI, for example. Agentic AI takes us a step further where we have the ability to, as Kevin was saying, to kind of hand things off in a way that requires, again, we should have called this session context, but requires that context that is so
We'll do another one. Yeah.
Yes, we have to. We could obviously talk for hours anyway, but it's so powerful and so meaningful to be able to take something like I actually have at my organization, created an NDA review agent that my contracts manager, Melanie, and I work on together when NDAs come through so that it doesn't create a heavy lift on the legal team. There's no reason we should have to review that. And when I say no reason, there are some reasons, and our AI review agent knows exactly what those reasons are. But it has taken us from, 5-10 minutes of review manually to 2 or 3 minutes of review. That adds up. That's really powerful. And you can give all that context, that mad scientist-y approach, and here's everything you could possibly need to know AI, distill this down based on these instructions, and give me an answer, is this a go forward or not? That's awesome. And you can take that step further as you go on. What I think I'm particularly excited about by all of this, and I gestured everything here, is there's something about being an in-house attorney that is so powerful in, as you were saying, Andrew, the ability to be, I would love to call myself omniscient, but I'm not, the ability to see everything and kind of touch on everything and have just enough context to understand stuff. And I was talking to Kevin about this a number of months ago, the ability to look at something and have like a little red flag go off. Maybe you don't know exactly why, but you have enough experience both as an attorney and in your organization to know something is wrong here and needs resolved, right? Even if it's just a simple Slack message you read that didn't quite feel right and you got to figure out where it goes. That power behind your judgment and your ability to reason, that's part of that like missing, like we're not, that may be V4 of legal tech, right? Like we're not there yet. So this idea that like lawyers are going away is never, I just don't think it's ever going to happen. There's something there about what we've learned that enables us to be really powerful business partners. But that superpower in your brain that triggers when you see something is only fed by the right kind of context, the right kind of information, and made more powerful and scalable by automation, which is done with agentic AI. So this where this it depends answer I'm giving is kind of terrible. I apologize, but there's steps to get everywhere we need to go, and finding out what your steps are so that you can first remove friction, apply context, apply logic and reason and judgment, and then take it to scalability. I mean, us as lawyers, we're going to change the way organizations work, as Kevin was saying, just by virtue of the incredible role we play in the work that we do as an organization. I'm super excited about it, if you can't tell.
That's cool. Yeah, someone in the audience said that spidey sense. I like that. So yes. Yeah, I like that spidey. Yeah, leverage those spidey senses as your superpower as lawyers. Kevin, you were gonna say?
Yeah, I love two things that Lily said there, and they resonate with me. One is the translation layer, and I'll say like I've always been fascinated by my wife's mind. She just picks up languages like a sponge, and she's a musician and a marriage and family therapist, so she just understands things at a level that I'm just fascinated with. And I always thought that translation or that language skill was something that I didn't have until I realized that that's what we do as attorneys. And the best of us translate complex things into simple, understandable ways, and take complex ideas and write them in simple, as simple as possible. And that's really a translation thing. And it can be even more powerful when you have additional things that you can translate to. For me, I have an engineering background, so that helps me be a translator between tech and the rest of the world. The other thing that resonated is the thinking about legal as a horizontal layer within an organization. And I read an article yesterday by one of the VPs at Cisco talking about the network stack. And yeah, I will make this relate. He suggested that one thing missing in the agentic, sort of the future of the network stack was a cognition level, a layer. And I think, in some sense, with the superpowers of reasoning and approach to reasoning that lawyers have, the translation ability in the best of us, we can be, if you think about the future of legal and in-house counsel, you can be that cognition layer within an organization, the place people go to get a really well-reasoned, well-balanced, well-contextually, involved answer. And so I think, if you think about the layer 4 or version 4, of legal in-house counsel, I think that's what I'd like to say is we're the cognition layer.
Love that.
Great. Cool. We've got some really good taglines out of this hour. It's only 53 minutes in. So Jessica, what's your take on the agentic AI story that's unfurling here? How are you thinking about it at Sandstone, and the bigger picture? What are you seeing as the opportunity for lawyers in that context?
I think the opportunity is actually initially mainly with our legal operations function. So a lot of in-house legal teams now are starting to build out a legal operations function or have a legal operations manager on their in-house legal team, because the reality is when you're in-house, you're not just doing legal work, you're running a department. And running a department means a lot of different things. You have a P&L, you have to manage your bills, you have to manage intake of various requests. And what I think is really interesting, and what I saw a lot of organizations, at Microsoft, we just called them business managers, business affairs managers, non-attorneys. And then now the tagline, with the rise of organizations like CLOC, Corporate Legal Operations Consortium, and our advisor, Mario Caro, who was one of the founders, now it's an actual job title, legal operations manager, but they own the tech stack and the process of running a legal department. Where I think the opportunity as it ties to agentic AI is, the reality is a lot of legal operations functions are still doing a lot of admin and process work. So by being that, for better or worse, that omniscient, cross-functional contextual layer across all the various functions, marketing, sales, customer success, we become a de facto project manager and process manager for other teams as well. And so I think agentic AI is really and I actually will show it. I lost, Sandstone is so secure. I got locked out of Sandstone because I'm at a law office right now, and I'm using a public Wi-Fi, and they said that is not secure enough, Jessica. So I got locked out. But I do have examples of an agent of Sandstone answering some questions that are generally actually more process. It shouldn't go to Lily and it shouldn't go to Kevin. And so for a lot of legal departments right now, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that agents can solve and pick that fruit for them. It could be, where do I go to, I want to onboard a new vendor. Where do I go? That's going to a lot of legal teams, surprisingly, because we know the process, because we work on all the procurement contracts, for example. What is our policy on immigration, et cetera? So in terms of the intake and triage and admin work, I think there's a lot of opportunity for agentic AI to just take that low-hanging fruit that is not high stakes, as Kevin said earlier, that requires 100% correct, good judgment and legal advice. It could be a low stakes generic commercial NDA that Lily has automated with agentic AI that was done primarily by human. And then the role of a legal ops manager will evolve to manage all those agents and make sure that the policies or the contextual brain behind them stay accurate or test their accuracy. But the role will evolve. So I think the opportunity is in taking a lot of there's still a lot of tedious work that we don't, that are still being done by legal teams today, and the agents can still solve for that and do that work. That doesn't actually spark joy for a lot of legal teams. You'd be surprised. I had to fill out, I won't say which tech company, but I used to work there 4 weeks ago. I had to fill out 3 different intake forms to onboard a new vendor. And 3 different intake forms. And then just learning the process and learning how to fill the forms was pain. That is actually very normal for a lot of enterprise companies.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
how do we just solve for that first? Instead of like, it's not the end of days and we're going to replace all lawyers. Solve for that terrible things that don't spark joy. I was irritated every JIRA and intake form I filled out.
I've been refilling out an intake form for a large vendor a few times this week already. So
did you also get 1,000 questions?
Yeah, they phoned me and they say, I said, can you add that number? And then they said, no, you have to go in and add the number. And then they phone me back with another thing. Anyways.
We could talk about this all day long. I once got approval to speak on a webinar 2 days after the webinar happened. There were so many sub processes and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I can speak on thing that happened 2 days ago. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
No, okay, I know if no one replies till 2 days after, that sometimes happens when we have people speak on our webinars.
I was just going to respond really quickly to Jess because I made a comment in the chat that not everyone might be watching that what this really does for us, having these agentic tools to go and gather context and everything for us, is it allows us to move up to that cognition level. So it's not, so rather than being the value of legal being in the weeds of everything, knowing everything in Jessica's head, it's the value is Jessica's head applied to that context. And that's where your value is moving up the stack. It also means that you're probably going to be able to take that same legal team and do a lot more and not rely on outside counsel as much, because you can, those of us who've been doing this for a long time, we have both the legal acumen as well as the ability to engage with context of the most senior partners at the best firms in the world. And so, yes, I call on them when I have a very specific need, but there's a lot of things that we don't need that level of super, very focused judgment on. And we can do that more ourselves if we free ourselves up to be at that cognition layer, to be making the judgments. And these tools will help us move from that source of truth for everybody, because they know we're across everything, and we kind of it's great to feel like you're the superhero and you know everything, but you want to be known as the superhero who's the strategic thinker. And that's what we have the skills to be doing, and that's where we should be moving up.
Before the last thought, 12:59 Eastern at least, you're welcome to stay because we're going to have a presentation from Jessica at the end here. But Jessica, it looked like you wanted to say a final thought. Oh, okay.
Oh, no. I lost access to Sandstone because I'm on a public Wi-Fi at a law firm.
Oh, so you can't do the presentation.
I do have a snapshot of past queries to a Sandstone agent, so I can show that, just to show folks
That'd
the
be
power.
Awesome.
Eliminating the low-hanging fruit. I'll give you this little, Slack teaser, and then if you want to see more, of course, schedule a demo.
Perfect.
After you see this little teaser, yeah.
Okay, so we'll just wrap things up. So Kevin, Lily, and Jessica, really interesting discussion. We only covered 2 out of our 3 themes, so that means we all have to come back, and we're hoping to do more of these webinars, and we're always doing them. So we will have you all back. It was a really interesting, impactful discussion. I could tell the audience enjoyed it. You can get your CLE accreditation. Like I said, the last word is value. Email us if you have any questions. We'll solve that. So thanks everybody on that. And now over to you, Jessica, who's going to give us a little bit of context about the context aggregator that is Sandstone, so people can really bring it to life what they do. And I encourage you all in the audience who can stay on to listen in for the next couple minutes. So over to you, Jessica.
Thanks. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Y'all see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. So what I'm showing you is a fake demo Slack account that we have that's tied to our demo Sandstone account. I'm showing the Slack user interface because I think what Lily and Kevin and I both know is that all the other business teams are already overwhelmed with their own tech stack. Salesforce, Outreach, whatever the tools are, Gong, etc. And the last thing they want to do on top of learning their own tech stack, doing their job, and using email and Slack is learn a legal tech tool. So one of our core philosophies is no change management for the rest of the business and make the legal tech invisible for the business. That's why I'm showing y'all Slack. And luckily it hasn't disappeared, my Slack. I asked actually a query right before our webinar started. Alice Masada is actually my daughter. Her birthday was 2 days ago. She just turned 11. Alice asked the Sandstone bot, and this could be branded any company, Nike Legal, Microsoft Legal, etc. Can I wear slippers to work? Because We all both know it's a random question, but if you're in-house legal, you know we all get random questions. We do. I'm like, that's not even a legal question. So I thought I would test and show if it's a legal question, how does the bot respond? Now, pretty good considering there's very little actually data in our demo account in terms of policy, but it's not enriched yet, right? Because the vision of a tool like Sandstone is it compounds the intelligence with every Slack, with every email, with every business system integration and policy uploaded to our knowledge bank. That answer gets better and better. But we don't have that much. Our sources are very low. When our sources is Zach, who is a colleague of mine and queries the website, you know that our sources are lacking. But it didn't do so bad. Look, this is an agent. There's no explicit dress code policy in our workspace documents covering footwear like slippers, et cetera, et cetera. And the agent is telling the user where it looked for answers, et cetera. And it says, for questions like this, go check with HR directly or employee handbook. That is pretty good considering this is a machine answering. That's generally how I would have answered it. And then, etc. So another question I asked before, and remember this power is all behind in Sandstone, is can I use an AI note taker tool? Now that's probably more of a question that legal should address. Yes, you can, but with some condition. Here's our policy verbatim from our business guidance notes, etc. And here's the requirements. Now this is pretty good because we actually have in our actual Sandstone account folks have answered queries related to AI note-taking tools and AI tools and have an AI policy. That's why you have a more richer response. But the point of this demo is let the AI agent take over that low-hanging fruit that I'm sure Lily and Kevin are still doing despite countless in-house legal teams. And I think that is the power today, is to use AI and leverage AI to remove all those kind of tasks and then give you the context and give you the sources. What I would have loved to have shown as well, and then I'm going to stop sharing, folks, when you get a demo, please get a demo of Sandstone, is that when you enter into Sandstone is that knowledge layer contextual engine. And the features, though, are intake and triage, contract redlining. Those are just the features that are empowered when you have the context. So let's say you're looking at a request comes in from Slack, and you open a ticket in Sandstone. The aha moment is when you look at the ticket and on the right, you see here's all the business context that we pulled from Ironclad, Salesforce, past emails, etc. And it says things like, hey, when you're negotiating this deal, this deal represents 10% of our annual recurring revenue. They're a core partner, et cetera, et cetera. Lily, do you get context like that when sales gives you a contract request?
Almost never, no.
Absolutely not. And you know what? In their defense, the account executive may not even have that. But imagine if you came to the table and told the account executive, the requester, hey, here's my advice. Here's the approach I took in my red lines, and here's why. You went from being a task doer to a strategic partner. So I wish I could have showed you folks what that looks like in Sandstone. So if you are really interested, please submit a demo request.
Awesome. Great demo. And I love the slippers question. So I can see probably folks in the audience and Kevin and Lily smiling about that because
oh, you get them all the time. I mean,
there's
maybe
no
not
dumb
slippers.
questions, but where the dumb questions go to die is perhaps legal.
Yeah,
it's legal.
Yeah, I mean, I have
you have to be
got the
nice
shorts.
about it.
I've got the shorts and tank top question, before. So it is not an unusual dress code question to come to legal, which is like, yeah. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the audience for sticking around.
This episode was brought to you by Sandstone, the platform for AI-native legal departments, trusted by dozens of leading GCs, legal ops leaders, and Fortune 500 companies. We thank you for listening to the Legal Innovation Forum podcast. Follow us for more episodes and visit www.liforum.co for more information on our programs and services.